On January 30th, 2005, Thailand was rocked by a grisly discovery that marked the beginning of a nightmare. Around 9 a.m., staff at a hotel in the Mahan sub-district stumbled upon a horrifying scene. Inside one of the rooms, they found the lifeless body of a young woman. The staff quickly alerted the local police, and a patrol team arrived promptly. Signs of a violent struggle were evident throughout the room, pointing to an altercation between the victim and her attacker. But the most chilling discovery awaited them in the bathroom. There, lying face down in the bathtub, was the victim. When officers turned her body over, they found marks around her neck, clear evidence that she had been strangled. The victim was identified as 25-year-old Maroni Pimpao, a cafe singer who had worked tirelessly to support her 5 younger siblings and aging parents. Maroni's life had been a testament to resilience. Despite her modest income, she had devoted herself to her family, determined to provide them with a better future. But her dreams were cut short in one brutal, senseless act. In 2019, a man stepped out of a Thai prison, breathing the air of freedom for the first time in years. He had served his sentence for murder, but just 7 months later, he was back in the spotlight, accused of killing again. This is the chilling story of Somkid Sid Pang, infamously known as Thailand's Jack the Ripper. How does a convicted murderer slip through the cracks of justice to claim another victim? Today, we delve into the dark and twisted journey of a man who terrorized Thailand, exposing the gaping flaws in a system that failed to protect its citizens. Sid Pang's descent into darkness didn't begin with his first murder. It started much earlier, rooted in a troubled past. Born in 1964 in Thailand's Nakhon Si Thammarat province, Pang's childhood was marked by abandonment and instability. When he was just 8 years old, his father walked out, leaving him to be raised by an uncle. That fateful abandonment was the first of many cracks in Pang's psyche, setting the stage for a life marred by crime and cruelty. Even as a child, Pang displayed disturbing behavior that hinted at the monster he would one day become. He had a penchant for theft, taking whatever he desired without regard for the people he hurt. But his crimes weren't limited to stealing material possessions. He also became a master manipulator, weaving webs of lies to deceive and control those around him. It wasn't long before his actions caught up with him. As he grew older, his crimes escalated. In school, he stole his teacher's bicycle. As a teenager, he embezzled money from his employer. His reputation in the village quickly soured. Despite his uncle's attempts to discipline him and steer him back on track, Pang seemed immune to correction. The local villagers, fed up with his antics, eventually took matters into their own hands. One day, a group of teenagers chased him down and beat him, forcing him to flee the village for good. It was a turning point, one that marked the beginning of his spiral into more serious crimes. From that point on, Pang became a drifter, surviving on theft, lies, and eventually violence. The boy who had once stolen bicycles and deceived neighbors was transforming into something far more dangerous. His story, already dark, was about to take an even more sinister turn. Sid Pang's life became a chilling pattern, with each transgression more severe than the last. Experts in criminal psychology point to Pang's turbulent childhood as a critical factor in his evolution into a serial offender. The abandonment by his father left him with deep-seated feelings of rejection and anger. These emotional scars, left untreated, festered over time, twisting his perception of the world and his place in it. Without a stable home or proper guidance during his formative years, Pang never had the chance to develop empathy or moral reasoning. Instead, he learned to survive through deceit and exploitation, viewing others not as people, but as tools for his personal gain. By the time Pang reached adulthood, the seeds of criminality planted in his youth had blossomed into something far more sinister. His petty thefts and lies escalated into dangerous offenses, paving the way for the horrors that would earn him the nickname Thailand's Jack the Ripper. The troubled boy had transformed into a predator, and the dark path he was on would soon shock an entire nation. The nightmare begins. On January 30th, 2005, Thailand was rocked by a grisly discovery that marked the beginning of a nightmare. Around 9 a.m., staff at a hotel in the Mahan sub-district stumbled upon a horrifying scene. Inside one of the rooms, they found the lifeless body of a young woman. The staff quickly alerted the local police, and a patrol team arrived promptly. Signs of a violent struggle were evident throughout the room, pointing to an altercation between the victim and her attacker. But the most chilling discovery awaited them in the bathroom. There, lying face down in the bathtub, was the victim. When officers turned her body over, they found marks around her neck, clear evidence that she had been strangled. The victim was identified as 25-year-old Maroni Pimpao, a cafe singer who had worked tirelessly to support her 5 younger siblings and aging parents. Maroni's life had been a testament to resilience. Despite her modest income, she had devoted herself to her family, determined to provide them with a better future. But her dreams were cut short in one brutal, senseless act. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community, and it wasn't long before the threads of this tragedy began to weave into a larger, more horrifying tapestry, one that exposed Sid Pang's terrifying legacy and the failure of the system to stop him. When a man claiming to be a talent recruiter approached Rooney Pimpao, she saw a chance to change her life. With hopes of providing a better future for her family, she agreed to meet him. Witnesses, including her friends and hotel staff, confirmed that Rooney checked into the Palace Hotel with the man. But something felt off. The man provided no identification, an unusual move for any hotel guest. Police collected DNA evidence from the scene, including traces on Rooney's clothing, and lifted fingerprints, yet none of the samples matched records in their database. To complicate matters further, the hotel lacked CCTV cameras, a common limitation in 2005, when surveillance technology wasn't as widespread. The only lead was the name the man had used to check in, Somkid. Unfortunately, Somkid is a common name in Thailand, making it nearly impossible to track him. As days turned to weeks, the case went cold. But on June 4th, 2005, nearly 700 kilometers away in the Muang Lampang district, another horrific discovery brought the nightmare back to life. A grim pattern emerges. The body of 34-year-old Pan Sachai was found in a hotel room under eerily similar circumstances. Like Rooney, Pan had been strangled. Her personal belongings, including a cell phone and a gold ring, were missing. An autopsy revealed something even more tragic. Pan had been pregnant at the time of her murder. Just 2 weeks later, on June 19th, 2005, the killer struck again, this time in the Muang Udon district, 400 kilometers from the last crime scene. The victim, 37-year-old Pontan Panabo, a masseuse, was found dead in a hotel room. She too had been strangled, her body left in a bathtub filled with water. Her personal belongings were stolen, but this time, investigators caught a break. CCTV footage captured the suspect trailing Pontan. He was dressed casually, jeans, a white and blue t-shirt, and a light-colored jacket. The footage provided the first concrete lead in the case, confirming that the man responsible was the same Somkid who had evaded police for months. A killer grows bolder. Believing himself untouchable, Somkid became even more brazen. His next target was another masseuse, S. Pong Pimpom. Using the same charm and deceit, he lured her in with promises of wealth and a way out of her financial struggles. Little did she know, she was being drawn into the web of a predator who had already claimed 3 lives. The stage was set for a chilling game of cat and mouse, as the police closed in on a man who had mastered the art of manipulation and murder. The question remained, how many more lives would be lost before justice finally caught up with Somkid? Presenting himself as a wealthy and successful man, Somkid lured his next victim, Pong Pimpom, with promises of comfort and financial security. He convinced her to spend 3 days with him, including a luxurious stay at a high-end hotel in the Muang Buri Ram region. But 2 days later, Pong's lifeless body was discovered in the hotel room. She was completely naked, strangled, and left without dignity. The police found several beer bottles scattered around the room, but it was a glass containing traces of an anti-allergy drug that raised alarms. When mixed with alcohol, the drug acts as a powerful sedative, a tool the killer likely used to render Pong defenseless before taking her life. As with his other victims, Pong's personal belongings, including her cell phone, were missing. It was now undeniable. The authorities were chasing a serial killer, a cunning con artist and cold-blooded murderer, a calculated pattern of terror. By now, police had pieced together the sinister strategy behind Somkid's crimes. His victims were often women working as masseuses or cafe servers, jobs that left them financially vulnerable and more likely to trust his manipulative promises of wealth and stability. Somkid exploited their struggles, presenting himself as their savior while plotting their demise. He preyed on women from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, individuals already carrying the weight of daily survival. Their precarious circumstances made them easy targets for his lies, ensuring they would follow him willingly into his trap. With 5 victims now identified across 4 provinces, fear gripped the nation as the hunt for Thailand's Jack the Ripper escalated. Police forces from multiple jurisdictions joined together, determined to end the carnage. But the investigation was riddled with challenges, a game of cat and mouse. The pursuit of Somkid was hampered by the limitations of the era. Surveillance technology was sparse, and many of the crime scenes lacked CCTV cameras, leaving investigators with little visual evidence to trace his movements. Even more frustrating, the absence of a centralized database hindered communication between police forces in different regions. As Somkid moved swiftly between provinces, key details about his crimes were lost in the gaps between jurisdictions. This lack of coordination allowed him to stay one step ahead of law enforcement, exploiting the very system meant to capture him. Despite these setbacks, the police pressed on. They relied on traditional investigative methods, meticulously collecting DNA samples from every crime scene and conducting exhaustive interviews with witnesses. But Somkid's ability to blend into crowds, charm his victims, and disappear into the shadows made him an elusive and dangerous foe. The nation watched in terror as the body count rose, and the authorities raced against time to bring an end to Somkid's reign of fear. Each clue brought them closer to unraveling his deadly web, but the question remained, would they catch him before he struck again? Just as it seemed the killer might evade capture, a critical breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Investigators discovered that a SIM card from one of the victims' stolen cell phones had been activated. This small yet significant detail provided the vital lead police had been desperately searching for. By tracking the location of the activated SIM card, they finally had a direct path to their elusive suspect. The trail led authorities straight to Somkid Pang. His arrest was swift and decisive, bringing an end to his reign of terror. During his interrogation, Pang cooperated fully, confessing to the murders and revealing his chilling motives: greed and the perverse satisfaction of exerting power over his victims. Pang was handed multiple life sentences for his heinous crimes, and justice, it seemed, had been served. Thailand collectively exhaled, relieved that the monster who had terrorized the nation was securely behind bars. But this sense of closure would soon be shattered. From monster to model inmate, within the confines of prison, Somkid underwent what many described as a transformation. His behavior was impeccable, so much so that he gained the favor of prison officials. He was hailed as a model inmate, earning praise for his compliance and good conduct. Over the years, this apparent reformation led to a series of pardons that slowly chipped away at his life sentences. In a justice system focused on rehabilitation, Pang's time behind bars was reduced to just 13 years. This decision sparked outrage and ignited a fierce debate about the leniency of Thailand's early release programs for violent offenders. Experts in criminal justice sounded the alarm, highlighting the dangers of releasing individuals with such a severe history of criminal behavior. They pointed to studies showing high recidivism rates among violent offenders, warning that Pang's release could put the public at risk. A controversial freedom. Despite widespread concerns, the justice system continued to work in Pang's favor. On May 17, 2019, a date that would live in infamy, Somkid Pang walked out of prison a free man. Just 13 years after his conviction, the man once branded as Thailand's Jack the Ripper was back on the streets. The public reaction was swift and furious. Disbelief and outrage swept across the nation as citizens grappled with the idea that a convicted serial killer had been deemed fit for release. How could someone with such a horrifying past be trusted to re-enter society? The release called into question the reliability of the justice system's methods for assessing re-offending risks among violent criminals. It laid bare systemic flaws that allowed someone like Pang to be freed, despite his history of brutal murders. The events that led to Somkid Pang's early release in 2019 were as baffling as they were troubling. The Director General of the Department of Corrections announced an immediate review of the assessment procedures for mentally ill inmates, acknowledging serious concerns over how Pang was deemed fit for release despite his violent past. This shocking turn of events exposed cracks in the justice system, leaving the public with a growing sense of unease. But as the dust began to settle, Thailand would soon face an even darker truth. Pang's freedom would prove not only short-lived, but deadly. It was a chilling reminder of the system's failure to protect its citizens. A grim discovery and a rapid return to darkness. On December 15th, 2019, just 7 months after his release, Thailand was shaken once again by a brutal murder. The body of 51-year-old Rasam Mulachan, a hotel maid, was found wrapped in a blanket and transparent tape. A chilling detail caught investigators' attention. Her ankle had been bound with a cell phone charger. The autopsy later confirmed what police feared. Rasam had been strangled, a method all too familiar in Pang's gruesome history. In the months following his release, Pang had wasted no time returning to his old ways. His relationship with Rasam began shortly after his release in May 2019, formed through Facebook. Just 13 days before her tragic death, Pang had moved into Rasam's home. This rapid descent from freedom to fatal violence underscored the alarming ease with which he slipped back into his predatory behavior. The final days, the events leading up to Rassam's murder, painted a chilling picture of Pang's inability, or perhaps unwillingness, to reintegrate into society. Neighbors reported hearing a heated argument between Pang and Rassam the night before her death. The following morning, the silence was deafening. When Rassam failed to show up for work, a concerned neighbor went to check on her, only to make the horrifying discovery of her lifeless body. As the news spread, a nationwide manhunt was launched to track down the killer. Witnesses reported seeing Pang leaving the apartment shortly after the estimated time of the murder, confirming what everyone feared. The nightmare was far from over. The monster who had once terrorized Thailand was now back on the streets, and the consequences of his early release were devastatingly clear. The urgency of the situation was palpable, as authorities scrambled to prevent any further tragedy. 4 days after Rassam Mulichen's murder, Pang's freedom came to a swift and shocking end. He was arrested on a train, thanks to an alert passenger who recognized him. Surprisingly, Pang offered no resistance as he was taken into custody. During interrogation, Pang calmly confessed to the murder. He explained that a quarrel over a motorcycle had escalated, leading him to strangle Rassam until she lost consciousness. But he didn't stop there. He continued until she was dead. A grim conclusion and a legacy of tragedy. In 2021, the case of Somkid Pang finally reached its grim conclusion when he was sentenced to death for his brutal crimes. His legacy, however, is a chilling reminder of the complexities of preventing and addressing serial killings. Pang's case underscores the urgent need for thorough psychological evaluations, stronger monitoring systems, and better communication between law enforcement agencies. As Thailand grapples with the aftermath of his horrific actions, there is hope that the lessons learned from his case will lead to significant reforms in how the justice system handles violent offenders. But even as justice is served, the heartbreak remains, particularly for the victims of Pang's terror, women who were simply trying to make a living or searching for love and a better future. Each of their lives was cut short in a tragic and unjust manner. Their stories highlight the vulnerability many face in their quest for a better life. Honoring their memory, may the women who suffered so much find peace in the afterlife, and may their families, who carry the heavy burden of grief and unanswered questions, eventually find closure. It's crucial that we honor their memories and ensure their stories are not forgotten. That is all for today. Thank you for watching.